I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Lisa.
Hi, Sean, thank you.
Good evening, Sean.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good.
Is everybody not showing their faces for any reason?
Here.
There's Anthony.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Good.
Who's on now?
There's
Lisa
John.
Here.
Lisa McQuaid, I don't have a camera.
Okay, that's all right, Lisa.
Check, thank you.
You
I
see
was hiding.
Jason's on. There
Yeah,
he is.
I'm gonna be staying mute. I'm just getting over COVID and I don't think you want to hear me hacking.
Oh, goodness.
I probably have a few more days of it and not feeling too well, so
Oh, I'm sorry, Pat.
it happens.
Yeah. I know Jeff was going to participate to the extent he can. So why don't we start? Is everybody ready? And we're recording?
We are.
Okay. So welcome everybody to the February 16th, 2021 Planning Board regular meeting. Noreen, would you please take roll call of attendance
Bonnie Franson,
here?
Jeff Manson,
Here.
John Allegra,
Here.
Anthony Vaccaro,
Here.
Pat Shea,
Here,
Lisa McQuaid,
Here,
Jason Swinski.
oh, Jason.
He's here.
Can't
Jason?
hear you, Jason.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
There we go. All right.
So with that, let's all say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
To the
to the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. With that, the next project on our agenda, or I should say the first one, is Kestenbaum, 20 Allison Drive. We have 11 attendees.
Joe Corona should be on there in place of Ward. Ward is at the town board meeting.
Okay,
So he had called earlier for the information. So he might be on there.
okay. So I see Jay is here. Is there any engineer present representing the application or surveyor?
Joel Mann was supposed to be on, and I don't know if Larry was going to be on or not.
I see Larry. I don't know if that's the same Larry, but I see a Larry.
I see
And I'm,
Joel.
Yeah, Larry should be here too.
Larry, could you state your last name for the record?
I'm sorry, it's Larry Toro, Civil Tech.
Thank you. We have Jay Monroe and we have Joel Mann representing the applicant. So why don't we start, if you would all the applicant please provide an overview of the project? And Sean, perhaps, do we have something to share?
Yeah, I have the site plan up. I'll share that now.
Okay.
All right, so we've been here once or twice before. And this is a site plan application to run a place of worship out of a single family residence at 20 Allison Drive. Since the last appearance, we've submitted additional plans. We made revisions to the site plan. We submitted additional information as to how the rooms in the building will be utilized for the place of worship. And I provided a narrative to basically go over the requirements of the zoning law section 5713Q, which are the individual standards for a place of worship. So those are all the documents that have been submitted since the last appearance, and we received McGoey-Hauser's technical comments, review comments today.
Okay, so with that, Sean, do you want to provide an overview of your comments?
Sure. Probably the main comment for the application is Ashley and I were trying to clarify a few things with Ben Maldonado, the building inspector, and based on the description that was provided in the narrative, Ben questioned whether or not the use should be, whether that should be a place of worship or a public or private school, both of which are special permits, R1 zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to that end, we should get a little bit better narrative from the applicant on what the use will be.
Okay.
So that Ben can make a determination what that, on what the use actually is, or combination of uses may be. Otherwise, I noted a few technical comments first about this. There was conflicting information in the narrative and the plan, whether or not a septic or a sewer connection was going to be proposed. Some cleanup items for the bus turnaround, the parking calculation, as well as since the application does not front on a major collector road as defined in the comprehensive plan, the applicant will have to seek a waiver, which can be granted by the planning board. Additionally, there in the code, it does have some screening requirements, and I actually went to the site this morning, and hopefully I can share these. Can you see that? The pictures?
Yep.
Yes, yes, thank you.
So this was from Allison Drive, looking down the driveway. So the house is not visible, which I believe the applicant's been trying to, or has stated previously. This picture is from, is it Cromwell Hill Road?
I believe so. You were on the road that gets to Allison.
That's correct, yeah. So this house that's shown here is not the subject house, it's actually behind this house. So really it could be visible from this house that sits here, but it's not likely visible from Cromwell Hill. So, some screening on this side, which if we go back to the site plan, the house that was shown in the picture, I believe would be this house here on this lot. So, the applicant should consider some screening on this side of the house. But otherwise, it looked to be fairly well hidden. So that's all I had.
Okay. Before we get into planning board questions, and I think we do have to tease out what the use is, Ashley, do you want to provide your comments to the applicant?
Sure. So I'll try not to be duplicative of anything that Sean had said, but a couple of things about, and these I think may actually be in his memo, but the engineer's cover letter that was submitted, I think it was December. The applicant's engineer talked about small additional paved areas where the bus would turn around, but those aren't shown. Related to that, there would need to be then the bulk table updated to show any lot coverage calculation to be adjusted for that, for those areas, and any increased coverage for the future parking areas, because they are, I believe, showing some parking that potentially may be constructed in the future if needed. There would need to be a revised EAF as well to address all of these plan changes and the additional paved areas, the turnaround, the parking, increased sewer demand, that type of thing, because I don't think the EAF's been revised since it was first submitted. As far as the narrative, so it does go through, for the most part, the criteria, the special use criteria in section 5713Q. There are some things though that do need further elaboration. So for example, the the landscaping, it relies on the existing landscaping, but you're asking for a waiver then, or you're saying that you already have sufficient screening. Just to specify that in the narrative, explain what waivers you're asking for and whether it already, if you think it already complies because of the existing what's there, to spell that out as well. So that was for really number 4 and 5, to elaborate on that. For criteria number 6 with the parking, so there should be a real parking calculation, because it appears you're asking for a waiver for that as well. So to spell out what the parking calculation would be, that's going to of course tie into what the use is. So we'll need to discuss that, further. And once we have a handle on what that actually is, if it's a combination school, place of worship, if it's one or the other, just to calculate what the actual parking demand would be, and then what type of waiver you're asking for. The same thing with the major collector road and parking that is in between the structure and the street line. I think that would be a waiver too. And for this specific type of special use permit for the place of worship, the waiver requires you to explain why it would be a substantial burden on the religious practice to comply with those provisions. So to include that in the narrative, why you're seeking the waiver. And as Sean had mentioned, if the use is actually going to be classified as the private school, then that, or a hybrid or some form of both, then that has its own special use permit criteria as well. I think some of them seem to be very similar. Some of them might be the same, but there may be some different ones too. So that'll really come about once we know more about what the actual use is. And I think we had mentioned last time it would be classified as an unlisted action under seeker, and it is not required to go to the county, but it does require a public hearing.
So I'm going to open this up to the board members first. Who would like to speak on this or has questions?
This is Anthony. Lisa, were you going to say something?
That's okay, go ahead.
So with regards to the process and vetting out these waivers, does this go to another planning board meeting to have a revised narrative so we understand what the waiver request is?
Yeah, so I would advise that there should be a revised narrative specifically identifying what waivers are needed, what waivers are requested, and then explaining why they meet that standard, that substantial burden standard. But also, if it's going to be requiring the private school special use permit, then that has its own criteria. If any waivers are being sought from those criteria, that would have to be spelled out as well. So more information would need to be submitted in order to allow you to make an informed decision on that.
Okay, great, because I'd like to reserve my comment until I see that. Thank you.
Lisa, did you want to say something?
Oh, I was, is this a residence? I mean, someone's going to be living there. It says the caretaker, but it looks awful large for it to be like a single-family home, 7,256 square feet. So I was just wondering what type of building it is.
My understanding that it's has a certificate of occupancy for as a single family home.
So then the person who's going to be occupying it is as the caretaker. It says will live on the second floor. So then, I don't know, it does look like a school as far as the layout. Be on in the basement and the first floor.
As far as the residence, it's going to pursuant to 5713Q10, it's going to be a tenant.
Could you repeat that? Jay, I didn't hear that.
I'm sorry, 5713Q10 says where the red structure is a single-family detached dwelling, the owner or tenant must reside on the site. The places will be rented out to a tenant who will live there full-time.
So could we, and I apologize, I think I missed a meeting where this was discussed. The last meeting I had, you were going to put the plans together. And I know, Jay, you were coming up to speed, so I may have missed one in between. Is there any kind of floor plan or any plans that show how the spaces are being used in the building?
Yes, there's an architectural floor plan for each floor.
Could
And
we
I
bring
can
that
try
up?
Sure, I can try to find that.
I think it's in color.
If I may, just while we're bringing up this floor plan, since my question revolves around that, are we talking big buses full of kids or little buses? And if we're talking the big buses, can the cul-de-sac on Allison Drive handle that turnaround?
First of all, the buses will not ever be going up to the cul-de-sac. They'll be turning onto Allison Drive and then turning right into the premises, which is well before the cul-de-sac. When they come out of the property, they'll be turning left and heading
Got it.
back down to, I think it's Cromwell.
Okay.
So that there will be no vehicles associated with this use that will ever make its way to the cul-de-sac.
Got it.
How many related to that, I'll add to that, Jason, how many buses would come and go from the site? If there's 164 potential students, how many buses would come back and forth?
It's anticipated there, and Joel, you can correct me on this, but it's my understanding there would be probably a maximum of 3 buses in the morning and 3 buses in the afternoon, late afternoon.
So it sounds
So
like big buses.
Yeah, we're probably.
I don't know if they'll all be big buses, but they may be big buses.
Well, the buses that you show, you're showing a bus template, Larry, that
Yeah,
is
It's the
34.
largest size, it's the largest size bus, correct?
And what's the occupancy of that bus?
I gotta think their standards, I'm gonna take a shot at this, around 40.
2, 4.
We could get that information, what the maximum is, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Because if there's a max of 164, then that would be 4 buses, potentially. Because I'm looking at this from the worst case scenario. If we have 4 buses coming and going, where are they going to queue on this site? And this gets to Jason's question about, we don't want them necessarily hanging out on the Allison Drive cul-de-sac. Where on the site, given the size of the buses, can we queue them? And will we have to expand the driveway?
But it's in, we can show that on it. We'll figure out if it's 3 to 4 buses. And there's enough room for them to stack while wait in queue in the drive. It's a fairly long driveway to out of one bus to unload, leave, and another bus pull up.
Can
Yeah,
I
because
ask,
I don't know how coordinated they will be as far as arriving and departing. Like, will they all, if they're all within, 15 minutes of each other, then it might be a concern. But if it's one every, I just don't know what the potential is for them to queue. And so if you have a bus coming in and one happens to be coming out, we have to consider that. What's the width of the pavement, Larry?
Well, down by the house, it's wide enough, but as it gets in there, it's probably about 15 feet. Going up the tail, let's say the tail of the driveway through there, correct?
Okay. Your scale is 1 to 40?
Let me see. Yes, correct.
Okay. I'm just checking something here.
Yeah, I have a paper print here.
Yeah, I have your PDF, so it helps. Because I can scale it as long as your PDF is scaled to match.
No, it is. If you print it out full scales, yes.
So it looks like so if I'm measuring off of the pavement, I see 9.95 based on a 40 scale. That's 10 feet.
At the one point I measured, it was about 9, a little over.
Yeah. So 9, or 10-foot pavement width, if you have to accommodate coming and going from a bus, isn't going to work.
All right.
Just to step back a moment. So we have net area calculations for our minimum lot area. And I don't know that it's necessarily going to affect you, but it's 1 acre. Were any steep slopes subtracted out from that calculation? Did we have to do that?
I mean, we did not, because where everything was existing, we were undoing
Yeah.
disturbance. I suspect if it was in place when a lot was created, but we can definitely do it if that's a requirement.
Yeah, for all our minimum lot areas, we have to calculate the net lot area based on subtracting out wetlands and some other features. So if you could look at those provisions and then just come up with whatever the net is for that site.
Sure, yes.
Okay. Sean, were you able to find those images?
Yeah, they should be, can you see those?
Yes. So this is the basement?
This should be the basement, yes.
So we have study room, and the occupancy, has that been reviewed by Ben?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so this would have to be confirmed. But so in the basement, our occupancy is, and I'm assuming this is how you got to the count for the entire occupancy of the building?
This is Joel. I don't know.
Hi, Joel.
I can't make my video to work, so you won't be able to see my face. But either way, like I said, I just came into that project to help them out. I wasn't involved while they did this plan and while they did the narrative. And I understand there's some concerns with the use, if it's place of worship or school. I will get into more details in order to make sure that we have a clear picture and you can make a determination on that. And the same thing is with the floor plans. I have seen the floor plans before, but I believe the accuracy is based on the code. It was done not through my office. So I will be in contact, like you said, once I have a clear picture and to see exactly what the use of that rooms are, we'll make sure that we have a determined occupancy so we can have a final number. And we'll make sure it complies, it matches with the number of buses, and everything should match with each other.
Yeah, so right now it looks like the bulk of these children are going to be in the basement. I have, based on the image 72.
I believe it's the basement and the first floor. So basically the second floor is proposed to be for the tenant or house taker.
That's the second floor you said?
The second floor, and the basement and the first floor are proposed to be part of the place of worship.
So I have, when I calculated the occupancy of that floor area plan right there, if you calculate the basement right there, that's 72. And then the first floor, you have about 59, 64, 73. Okay, it's actually 73 and like 84. So the bulk of the kids are going to be on, what are the age of the students, Jay or Larry or Joel?
It's school-age children, and there'll also be adults.
I'm sorry, we're coming in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. It'll be school-age children, and there will also be adults.
Is that in the narrative as far as the age range?
I think I mentioned before, in one of I did two narratives, or I thought I did two narratives, but yes, the attendees of the place of worship will be school-age children and adults. It's in my narrative, the one I just submitted. It's in the it's in the first paragraph.
So when we say, because I don't have it in me, I don't have it, I'm trying to find it. I have the one to Town of Monroe Planning Board, Aaron Custom.
Yeah, that's it right there. It's this one.
Okay. So applicant seeks approval for the use of that one?
Yes.
It says narrative? Okay.
Yeah, it's the sixth line down.
Yeah, I'm sharing it.
Oh, okay. Yep, that's the one I was looking at. So when you say school-age children, are you talking 5 to 17, 4 to 12, 5 to 22? What is school-age children? I'm just, because I don't know.
I'll have to, I assumed it was 5 to 18. That's what I considered it elementary, high school age children, but we can confirm that.
Okay.
Would
So
it make
elementary
more
up to
sense
like high school.
Make it grades.
Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
Would it make more sense? Sorry, would it make more sense to make it grade specific? Like K through 6 or 6 to 12 or whatever that is. Or
I mean, we'll get an age. Listen, if it starts, I'm not sure what if it starts at 5 years old, it starts at 5 years old. And if it's school age, if it's children and adults, it's basically going to be people from 5 years old and up.
But so for this type of educational facility, do they normally group the kids like 5 to 7 and then maybe?
It's not an educational facility.
Well, that's to be determined.
It is not an educational facility. It's not a school as defined. It's not a private school as defined in your code. There's no set curriculum. There's no mandatory attendance. You don't enroll in this place as a school. It's a place of worship. People come for religious training. People come for the uses. That it's not a school.
So when do the kids go to school if they're here from 8 to 4?
I don't know if they come every day. They may not come every day. It's not a regularly set schedule. It's not one group of people as far as I understand.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, that's what we're trying to understand. So if they're going to school, is it always going to be 164, or do some of these kids go to school and then they come for religious studies and it's like 3 days here versus 2 days somewhere else. We're just trying to get a sense of how this space is being used.
Yeah, this is Joel. I will, like I said, I will need to check in more detail, but my understanding is that this, like Jay said, it's not a school, it's a place of worship, and children or adults are not enrolled. It's basically, and not everyone, it's might be everyday different children for different type of lectures or something, or prayer services. So that means that, yes, the maximum occupancy will be 164. That doesn't mean that every day there will be 164. So it depends. But like I said, I will get
But Joel, it's not adults. In other words, could you in theory get 164 adults there?
Yes, at one point, might be instead of children, might be 164 adults. That's my understanding, like I said, but I will get more clarification on that.
Can you, as a result, I'm talking from, and this is a Ben question, but in terms of your occupancy, is the occupancy more or less, or does it change if it's children versus adults?
I don't think so. No, it's basically the same occupancy. Based on code, it's the same occupancy, children or adults.
In other words, if you go into like, when I remember being in school, when you have kindergartens, they have little tables and little chairs. Versus if you're in college, you have big tables and big chairs. And so you obviously can fit more kiddies in a kindergarten room potentially than adults. So, and I don't know how the code works, building code. So that's what I'm trying to figure out is the occupancy you're showing for the rooms based on adult standards, children's standards, does it vary?
I don't think it varies. It's the type of use that makes the decision of the occupancy. If it's a school, if it's a place of worship, every room, actually, the use of that room is making the determination for what occupancy you can use it.
What, so this is a public assembly use from a code perspective?
I
Would a
believe.
place of worship be public assembly? Would a school be public assembly as well?
I think it's a group H.
It's not, this is a private use. It's not public assembly.
No,
This is
but
a-
I mean from a code perspective. I'm just using the word public, but assembly from the code
I believe that's
perspective.
what the A3 is,
It's an A3.
assembly, yeah,
So that's an assembly use.
I believe so, yes. I'm no
Okay.
building code expert, but I think that's what the A3 is, so.
Okay.
And if I may ask a question, because, and I'm sorry, I'm ignorant on this point, but is the 164, which the number we calculated as being the maximum allowable occupancy of the building?
That's what the architect.
I know Joel isn't.
That's according to New York State Building Code. Based on that,
Okay.
164, what I see, I don't know where he took, from where the guy, whatever he did the plan, took his numbers. And I'll let him verify that again, but it seems that he took something from the building code, and he has some type of basis, but we'll check on it and we'll confirm that with Ben. And per New York State Building Code, the maximum occupancy on this building will be 164. And I believe that was the basis that they're using for this. So the use cannot be more than what he can use according to New York State Building Code.
Whether it's for children or adults, it's 164.
Correct.
Okay. I'm
So
sure,
we-
Sean, you have an architect that can also check those occupancy standards, right?
We do,
And
yeah.
Joel, whether it's a place of worship or a school, is it the same assembly requirements? You know, or are they different standards?
There might be some different standards, but there shouldn't be much difference between these two.
Okay.
But listen, if for a code perspective, this is a question, we can always go through both codes and use the more restrictive. I don't think that someone wants to fight about safety here.
No. So you actually, perfect segue. My next question was going to be fire suppression and what has to be incorporated into a building of this type of occupancy?
So basically a fire alarm will be required, and I believe sprinklers will probably not be required. but I'm not sure. I will need to check on that.
And you're on a well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's on a well.
Okay.
So Bonnie, I had brought that exact Ben a few weeks ago, and if it was according to Ben, if it was a school use, sprinklers would not be required, but likely it would be required for the assembly use. But so he before he gave a formal determination, he wanted to understand the use before identifying whether or not it needed to be sprinkled. So.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about fire safety, Bonnie, just to follow up on that.
Sure.
You know, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 study rooms in the basement. Number one question is, I don't think it is by looking at these plans. Is it a walkout basement? Number two, it looks like there's really no form of egress on that one side of the basement. Can you go back, Sean, to the?
John, you catched a good point, and I also noted that once I saw these plans. I will look into that according to the code, and certainly if the planning board is even per the code, I don't need one. If this planning board will, for the safety, feel that there is a need one, we'll definitely look into that, and we'll see where we can add the most simple second egress for the basement.
Yeah, so if you look at the top there, Joel, I see a bunch of windows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, so I'm sure the building code requires that they be a certain size, but then that study room 4 at the bottom, it would concern me if there were, God forbid, a fire down there. And they wouldn't, people wouldn't be able to get across the hall to get out.
Yep.
So while we're on the basement, looking at that, the unfinished area and the storage, what's going to be stored in storage, and the unfinished area, does it have a ceiling height that would allow it to be converted to some other use?
My understanding that the area, it's my understanding the areas of the house that are not dedicated to the place of worship are going to be used as part of the residence.
And I think if I'm looking at this correctly, is there one toilet and shower downstairs?
Yeah, that's what exists now.
And I don't know that that's sufficient for the number of children or adults that are going to be there. Do you anticipate you would need to provide more in the way of facilities?
I will assume so, and we'll definitely look into that. Yep, that's one of my part of my list when I saw this. Yes.
Okay. The WH over by the storage area. What's WH? Is that?
That's hot water. That's the boiler room. Water.
The boiler room.
The boiler room and hot water.
Okay.
Probably says water heater or something like that.
Is this house connected to gas, or does it have propane or oil?
Larry, do you know that?
I believe it has an oil tank.
Do we know where
It's
that
on
is?
oil. Excuse me?
Do we know where that is? That inside the house, or is that exterior?
I believe it's below grade. We can verify that, but there was a fill cap, so it's probably below grade. I don't see it anywhere in the architectural plan in the mechanic room.
Yeah, there's some things that aren't labeled, so I'm just not sure what it might mean. Closet, all right. And then, yeah, if you could kind of follow up on the unfinished area, and if it has a ceiling height that could accommodate additional development.
Yeah, I will have from my office, I will send out someone from my office to look over the whole house and clarify all this information. And then we'll use everything that's as required by code.
Yeah, because the way right now, it looks like the storage, you go into the storage room, and from the storage room, you can get into the, like the boiler area. And then there's kind of a hallway there with a door, but it's unclear where that's going.
It
I
seems
think that's a stairway to the garage.
no, seems more like a closet. Might be that there's sometimes they have the water system there, but either way, I will check on that.
Yeah, check on that door. Maybe it's an existing door that they didn't get rid of, but I'd be curious what that is. And so then we have our stairs that go up, and John raised a question with regard to, access, which will have to be addressed. And so now we're in our main floor. Can we get to the main floor?
This is the main floor.
Okay. So there's a 2-car garage, and those are just like a short set of stairs to come into the house, right?
Correct.
Or to the main floor.
Yes.
And then you have a copy room. You show food prep, and is that going to be some kind of dining room, or is it, or the dining room separate?
There's a dining room separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that dining room, does it accommodate, people at different times? It's not going to accommodate the full occupancy at a single time, right? Because there's not enough space. Or do people tend to eat at their desks, or?
Got your question.
Okay.
My understand, there's no food preparation on site. It's all brought in, so I'm guessing they'll do it in shifts that people come get their food, go sit down, and when they're done, new people will come in. That's my guess.
So food will be brought to the site?
Correct.
And is it going to be like stored for a week, or they're coming daily to bring in the food?
Usually,
I believe it's daily, but Joel, we can check on that.
we'll check on that. Usually, if food are coming, it's usually daily, but we'll check on that.
Is it delivered like by a van, or what kind of delivery is it?
Maximum a van.
Like a van?
Yes.
Okay, and so then you have a prayer room, and so you can get into the prayer room, and from the prayer room, it looks like you can get into the bath and a closet.
It's what I see is, I understand it looks like a little bit different than they took the existing house and tried to utilize the most of the existing space without doing much modifications. So that's basically that you can have some questions. It's an interesting layout when you look at from a perspective for a place of worship, but when you look that they took the portion of the existing single family house and it was converted, you will understand that. So that's basically what it is. So they have access to the bathroom from both areas directly from the prayer room, because it's an existing door. They're not going to close it. So they have like a closet from the prayers room. What should they do? They keep the closet there. So.
Okay. And the 2-car garage will be for the individual who's going to reside there, the caretaker.
Correct.
Will that be the rabbi, essentially?
Might
Or
be.
not necessarily?
We don't know.
Okay. And can we go to the upper floor?
Just one thing before we leave.
Oh, sure.
Did anyone evaluate ADA access to the home, or I should say to the place of worship?
School.
Yeah.
That's part of my list. Yes.
Okay.
We need to be evaluated. It seems can work. We'll probably need to add some type of ramp to the porch area, and that should make it.
Sorry.
Yes.
Could I make a suggestion? I read in the narrative there would be no food prep, and I was just on the floor that we were looking at previously, the first floor, where it
Says
does
food
say
prep.
food prep. Maybe it could be changed to kitchen, so it's not confusing. I understand if the food comes in, maybe there would be a space that they're preparing to, hand it out to the kids, not that they're cooking it there or making it there. So maybe, because it does seem like confusing, maybe it could be changed to something that's not as confusing. being that
agree.
they're not preparing food there.
Right,
Maybe if change it to kitchen, or I don't know what else, but it's, if they're not going to prepare food, but it says food prep, that was confusing to me.
right. Or if we're gonna do food prep, then just let us know how that happens and are there additional people who do that?
Maybe they mean there's no cooking going to, going
Correct.
to take place.
That was the understanding. There's no cooking. They're just basically preparing to hand out the food. So, but
Okay,
We can change the title.
yes.
so next level. So this space, it has a study room up there, but the majority you said is going to be for the caretaker?
Yeah, but even, I believe even the study room, which will be part of the caretaker, it's like a private study room, like you have a library. That's what the plan means probably. I will check on
And
that. I assume.
Is it going to be a family that lives there then? Or just an individual caretaker? Like if it was a
we haven't
rabbi, would his
determined-
whole family be there
We're gonna-
or?
We're going to comply with the code. It'll either be the owner or a tenant.
Okay, because there's a playroom up there. I don't think that's.
Well,
know
if
if
it's a
that's going
family
to be
with kids, then that'll be appropriate.
That would make sense.
Right.
So that's why I'm asking, is it going to be a family as far as overall occupancy or just an individual?
Hey,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Sean, we might want to check with the county Department of Health on what the rules are regarding preparing and or passing out food in a kitchen that would be shared with a tenant or occupant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
you know, if you're going to be distributing food in a kitchen that an occupant is using, you actually might not be able to, you might not be allowed to use it. You might have to set aside another area to do that.
Okay.
So sort of what would be like a typical day of someone who comes to this facility, like a student there or a, whatever you're going to call them, worshiper? What would they do? Like what would be their typical day? I don't know if Joel, you could help with that.
Like I said, I will need to get you more clarification on exactly on that. So I'm not 100% sure. I understand.
Okay.
I understand the concept what they're doing here, but in order to get it more detailed, I will need to get a little bit more research from them and understand that. And I will be able to explain it, and we'll have it more clarified, so all of you will understand that.
Okay. Another thing, because I did visit the site, one of the things that I would say did concern me, and I think it comes down to, again, who's going to occupy the site, is I seem to recall that was a steep drop off or a fairly good sized slope in the front of the house. It kind of goes down pretty quickly, if I could recall correctly. So I don't know if there's going to be an exterior play area or an exterior recreation area or how the exterior may be used. But I think you want to make sure that there's some safety there if there are kids running around. And again, that's my recollection. I was there probably a month and a half, 2 months ago when I visited. The sewer connection, is there a maximum slope or for those utility lines? Can that sanitary sewer connection actually be put in?
Yes.
Okay.
There's specific things they require. If it's too steep, then you have to anchor the pipe, etc. So, but there are different techniques for steeper slopes.
Okay. Is there any stream or anything coming off of the hill there?
Not that we've seen.
Intermittent or? Okay.
No.
And so if you're going to do a connection, I think that within where you're showing the proposed sanitary sewer connection, We should probably show the limits of disturbance. I'm not, I'm not sure how you're gonna get equipment up and down there. And also to see the topography and then any kind of grading that has to be done.
Okay.
And at this point in time, you're not proposing to make any changes to the remaining 8.4 because the site plan only shows a portion of the area that's existing. So the remainder of it, where there's no topo, I guess it's forested or wooded, there are no plans there at this time.
That's correct.
Okay. Did we get a deed for this property? Did you send in a deed, Jay? We typically get deeds to look at, just to see if there's any utility easements or anything else on.
I didn't send in the deed. I'll get it for you.
Okay. Yeah, if you could send it in to Noreen and then she'll send it to us, but especially Ashley, so she could take a look.
Okay.
Are you aware of any kind of encumbrances that could affect the use of the property?
There's no encumbrances that would preclude the board from continuing their review.
What?
I'm not sure what that means.
We're reviewing, I'm still reviewing title.
Oh, okay. Is that something that can be shared with Ashley?
Yes,
Okay.
I will
Terrific.
share. Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. And the same goes for Allison Drive. Allison Drive is was it accepted as a public road? I forget. I assume it was.
Yes.
Okay.
I have another
And-
safety question. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
I have another safety question. Seeing that this home was built in 1994, it looks like, and I also noticed that on the second floor, there are two areas where you look down at the first floor.
Mhm.
The codes regarding railings and everything may have changed since the time the home was built, spacing between banisters, if it's banisters or if it's a solid wall, and the height of that railing. And also with that, the way it is now, is that match up with any requirements for the public assembly usage, or does that have to be fortified in any way?
I can, John, so basically the way it works, if you do any renovations into a building, there is in the New York State Building Code for renovations, what you need to comply. Mostly you need to update the house, and certainly here you're changing the use from a single family to whatever it is. There is also structural details that we need to look to. That's a typical checklist that the building inspector is looking for, and we will have our architects look at it and make sure that it complies to code once this will be submitted to the building department.
Oh, thank you.
I have a question about the second floor also. As far as the fire safety is concerned, does there need to be a separation between the living dwelling, which is up on the second floor, and because it is open down below? Like, I don't know where it's between the two offices, it's probably solid walls. Like if that's over the entry to the home, it doesn't look like there's, a railing or anything that anyone's going to fall out of. But also, I just was wondering if there's a need, because it is going to be what we feel is a private dwelling. And then it is open to the worship area. Is there a problem with the fire safety? And then there is no kitchen up there too. So the home, or the person who's going to be renting would probably be going downstairs to use the kitchen. There's a refrigerator and, the full kitchen, dishwasher, stove and stuff like that. So it almost seems like they're going to be inhabiting the worship space as well, at least the kitchen area. So fire safety wise, is there any type of separation that it is open? because if it was a single family home, then everyone who's living in it would occupy the home. But because it's going to be multiple use, is there an issue?
I think that would be addressed at building code with Ben, you know, with the building permit, if there is a need. Yep.
Okay.
Board members, do you have any other comments or questions? Jason says no. So, you know, overall.
I'm sorry, Bonnie.
Yes. Go ahead, Jeff.
I just had I had a question probably for Jay. There was a late submission and it was showing the Allison Drive cul-de-sac and the surrounding lots. And it looked to, I didn't really understand what that was telling us, frankly. You had a list by lot number, yes, yes, yes. One was a question mark. And I'm wondering if you could tell us more about that document.
Which document are we talking about?
If you hold on a second, I'll tell you what it's titled.
Was it the tax maps?
It's the tax map with CER information from 2-3. And in your comment, I guess it said lots 8 through 12 on the filed map had the same deed restrictions in them. This would create a common scheme for the improvement and the use of lots on the filed map, and in my opinion, is enforceable by any owner that took title subject to the restrictions. But I'm not quite sure what those deed restrictions refer to and how that affects the surrounding lots.
I'm not, okay. When was that submitted? Did I submit that? I submitted that.
Emailed, let's see.
Yeah, this is what I have to
Noreen
talk.
on February 8th.
Okay, this is what that was, I'm not sure that was meant to be submitted,
Oh, okay.
but you
Yeah,
have
I
it.
mean, I see it's.
But
I
you
see it's
got
to-
it, so I'm gonna talk
It's
to
to Aaron,
Ashley.
Larry, Joel, and
I-
Noreen.
I'd ask you to let me talk to Ashley first, and then we'll report back to the board on that.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I
Okay.
was just trying to understand the significance
Listen,
of that.
I'm glad you told me you got it. I'm not sure I meant to submit it,
Okay,
but you'll get
That works.
you'll get clarification on it.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bonnie, I have another question.
Sure.
We talked about the basement and the bathroom that's in the basement, and I think that was going to be kind of addressed maybe the next time they're here. Would the same apply to the first floor? Because it looks like there's maybe 2 bathrooms on the first floor, and the second floor has the 2 bathrooms as well. You wonder if people are going to be going upstairs, if there's not enough bathroom, there's not enough toilets, or 164 people. I don't know if they're all going to be there at the same time, but it definitely doesn't look like there's enough
Right.
bathrooms. So I would hope that it gets incorporated, whatever they're looking at as far as the basement. Do you think the first floor is going to be addressed as well with the bathroom situation?
I think all of it should be addressed because it also speaks to then the sewer demand, the water demand. So all of the fixtures, does it meet code, et cetera. I think we need more information on that. I think essentially it looks like the architect kind of, as someone had said, taken the rooms and converted them
Right.
into study areas. And I don't know to what extent it's been advanced and to what extent it meets whatever code exists for, the need for toilets and sanitary facilities, et cetera. I think that's a general question. And I think, Joel, you were going to explore that with the applicant further.
Right. So my thought is if this was built as a single family home in 1984, I don't think anyone anticipated 164 people living there. Now we understand they're not going to be living there. It's a Monday to Friday thing. But I don't think that the sewer or the water or anything that was approved for this spot is going to accommodate the amount of people that are going to be using it. So that was my thought on that. That's all.
Well,
Thank you.
I think if this is this is related to if this is a place of worship, if there's a high holy day and it's on a Saturday or a Sunday, would they come to this facility?
That's a good question. I will need to check it. Like I said, I understand the board's questions and there's some clarification needed. And generally, I will do a full review to make sure that this complies with the building code for the use that it's going to be used. So if there's a need for more bathrooms, we'll propose that. If there's a need for more egress, we'll propose that. And everything will be addressed at once with clarification.
Okay. Yeah, I think we want to know everything so we fully understand how this site is being used, because ultimately the building inspector is going to make the determination how it falls under the building code and zoning. From my perspective, I think it's important that we know if the occupants could be all adults, because to me that then raises whether in fact they will come all by bus or if they are all children. If there are buses, what's the likely schedule? Are they being dropped off all at once? Because they cannot all be accommodated in that driveway. And so, it raises the question of driveway improvements. We've had lots of questions on the use of the building from an exterior perspective. Will that area be used during the day? Outdoor space, will there be play areas? Will it be fenced in? Ensuring that if there are any improvements that we're seeing fully on the site plan, all areas, whether it's topography and also grading, whatever's necessary to accommodate those improvements. I will bring up the question of the tree survey. If there are grading and other improvements, we have a tree preservation section of our law that'll kick in. We need to figure out the net lot area. Joel will, be following up with providing us additional detailed information on this. And it sounds like Jay and Ashley will work together on the title and any issues or implications of, deed restrictions, deed encumbrances, et cetera. Anything else anybody want to add? So Ashley, at this point in time, I think, and board members, I think we need more information before we do any kind of seeker circulation. I think we need a little more so we make sure that we're circulating a correct EAF with the right information. So my suggestion would be that we hold off till the site plan is advanced a little bit more. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, I said, and the use is defined.
Right.
Yeah, you'll need to exactly have the use actually classified. And then I think I mentioned before, a revised EAF with whatever plan changes, new impervious surface, any kind of disturbance, that's all reflected. The new sewer demand, that's all reflected in the new EAF.
Okay. I'm not sure if this was intended to show all improvements within a certain distance of the site, but if there are any homes or any, because normally you see the topo go onto adjoining site. You see sometimes within 100 feet or 200 feet, whether there might be the dwelling in close, an adjoining dwelling in close proximity to the site. But I think that information would be useful. Obviously, if a septic system is pursued, and Larry, again, I think you're figuring out whether it'll be septic and or, is it septic and or a line, or you're pretty sure it's going to be a line?
The existing system would be abandoned and it would just be the one service line.
Okay, so that's a definite. You're not going to expand the sewer.
No, it
Okay.
wouldn't make sense to do both.
Okay. I was only asking because if you were going in the direction of expanding the sewer, then we need to see where the wells are for the other houses and separation distances. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Going, gone? All right. I think that's it for now. When you're ready, you can resubmit and we'll get you on the next agenda. Noreen, what's the in by date?
I did not bring the calendar home with me, today, but I believe it is the 25th for March 11th meeting.
Okay, and today's the 16th. So, just keep Noreen informed in terms of the next submission and when you need to get on an agenda.
Okay, we'll try the best. It might be the agenda.
And then we still have to close the loop with Ben. So, I think that if that still has to happen, whether you get to the in by date for the planning board. If Ben needs to look at anything, there's nothing stopping you from submitting for him to
Right.
make.
Right. I think I can submit the same time to Ben too, and he can give his input between the submission and the meeting.
Okay. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night now. Enjoy.
All right. So next item on our agenda, just closing these out, is Verizon Wireless. And just a quick comment, there may be some attendees, participants who are listening in with regard to the applications. This is a meeting, it's not a public meeting. So we don't normally take comments from the public. But if you have any
Not a public
comments with
hearing, I
regard.
think you meant to say. It's a public meeting, but not a public hearing.
Public meeting, but not a public hearing, sorry. It's a public meeting, but not a public hearing. And so if there are any comments that for whatever reason you want to share with us, feel free to reach out to Noreen. You can always send them in via email and she'll circulate to the board. But whoever may be on the line, you'll have an opportunity to communicate with the board, at a formal public hearing. But again, that doesn't stop you from submitting comments if you have any to Noreen. So with that, sorry for the delay. Verizon Wireless, where are we?
Good evening. First, I think, if I may, a couple of the people that are listening are actually with me, if they could be let in. It's Sarah Coleman, Kathy Pomponio, and Mike Crosby. There we go. Great.
Hello,
Thank
all.
you. Thank you. So where we are is, I think we were here last in December, and that was shortly after the Zoning Board of Appeals granted us a use variance to allow us to install a wireless facility on the property, which is a 1.5 million gallon water tank facility in the Meadow Glen condo development. And it took us, oh, great, thanks. These are the current plans that we have. It took us a little while to get the plans redrawn to match what the Zoning Board of Appeals approved, because they approved an alternative to what our original project was. But what we have before you, and Sean, if you're doing this, if you want to go to maybe the last sheet in this, I think it should be a profile or elevation. Yeah, this really illustrates what we're trying to do. So what you're looking at here, that side of this is the front part of the tank. It faces Bar Lane. We are going to install 2 antennas below the existing, it's like a concrete band at the top there. You can see it's a little off-white. Exactly, right there. The antennas will be attached, via cabling, as you can see, that kind of go to the right and then down. That'll be attached to the equipment that's going to be mounted on the ground. And the equipment is within or meets the existing setbacks. We've got to be 40 feet from each line, and we accomplished that. There's not a lot of room, but we were able to meet that. And the antennas and all the cabling will be painted to match the color of the tank, so that it doesn't stick out and tends to blend in as best as possible. And so we're here tonight basically, to continue the site plan review process. We have Sean's comments, and I don't think Steve Matthews is able to be here tonight. Steve is with Tectonic Engineering, and he's in the process of providing a response to those. I know we need a revised EAF. Steve will work on that, and the plans have the wrong zoning district name on there. It's the light industrial district. So that information will be forthcoming, hopefully within a week or so, well in advance of the next meeting. But that's where we are. The ZBA held 5 separate public hearings on this between late spring and the fall of 2020. They were very well attended. They lasted about 2.5 hours. And it ended up with a seeker negative declaration by the ZBA and a very comprehensive approval resolution granting us the use variance.
So with that, Sean, do you want to go through your comments, summarize them?
Sure. For the use variance, the ZBA had identified a number of items that the planning board should make sure are included. Some of that being make sure that the colors are matching the tank, like Scott had indicated, as well as some erosion control measures, as well as screening for the ground mounted items. That's what a lot of this italicized things here are here. We don't have to go through those. We'll just make sure that they're addressed as part of the process moving forward. Scott had also mentioned the wrong zoning district. We will need a zoning bulk table with the proposed and required dimensions. This note in number 4 here is a requirement of the town code regarding use variances. The municipal boundary was incorrectly identified on the site plan here. That this is not the Village of Curious Joel municipal boundary, but this is a lot owned by the village. And then lastly, the plan poses a shared access easement for Verizon. So I suggest that a road maintenance agreement be executed between Verizon and the homeowners association that maintains those roads. So.
Yeah.
Just, Sean, you're fading away a little bit when you,
oh, sorry.
When you I think when you turn your head, you may be away from the microphone, wherever it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On that road maintenance issue, we actually have an easement with the condo board. And I know that was one of the comments that I think maybe Ashley submitted. I'll be submitting a copy of that easement that talks about what our respective responsibilities are on that for that road and access.
I think in terms of landscaping and screening, if we could send this to Karen, she could weigh in on appropriate screening given the equipment and what's there. So Karen Arndt is a landscape architect who we've retained, Scott, to do our landscape reviews. You may have run across her in Newburgh or some other communities.
I have actually, I believe.
Yeah,
I
or
believe.
Montgomery.
Yeah. Can I share my screen to show you or address to talk about landscaping?
Sure.
And oh, that was quicker than normal. I've gotten better. So this is just an aerial of the property and some of the neighboring properties that I pulled from Google Maps. And yeah, I guess maybe I could have done a street view too, but I guess I didn't. I didn't think of that. Obviously, this is the water tank, and the property pretty much runs along. I don't know if you can see my little cursor, but it runs along there. It's 200 feet by 200 feet, give or take. Lots of screening all along the front bar lane, and it kind of goes up along this side here. And this side is fully screened because you have condos over here to the, I'll just say to the left. I just drew this little red. It's not to scale, but it's to the best of my ability. That's generally where the equipment on the ground will be located. So I wanted to just give perspective in terms of screening. The boundary is totally screened right now, except for this entrance. Basically, you're not going to be able to see this equipment from Bar Lane. Maybe unless you kind of come up here and peek your head in, but because of the angles, it's just not going to be visible. And the water department really doesn't want to put screening around any part of that facility. They have underground lines, et cetera. And they also feel that the existing screening that they installed originally is more than sufficient. There are also in the visual that we submitted to you, and I won't put that up unless you want to see it. That shows you more of a ground level view of some of the screening that's out there. And like, for example, if you're looking over in this parking lot to the left, this is very dense. You can't see anything on the ground from street level. So I guess what we're trying to say is, I understand you want to send it to the landscape architect, but we don't think that any further landscaping is required. And the village is not keen on that idea at all because of its existing use.
So a couple thoughts. One is I think we should, I don't know who attended the hearings for Verizon, whether someone from the Village of Harriman, DPW, was present. And I guess secondly, and this would be a question for Ashley, when the ZBA issued its determination, did it require screening? Or did it say the planning board should look at screening? Because I think there's a difference, and we should be clear on, whether there's a condition they established that they're just having us follow up on, but not actually requiring that the screening be there.
My comments have the condition that the ZBA had proposed, so I'll just share that.
Okay.
It's this sentence here. Ground equipment shall be surrounded in all visible directions by shrubbery, landscaping, or other approved conceal methods, and shall be properly maintained in a manner and at such times as to be determined by the town's planning board.
Yeah, that was an issue that, and no one here was part of it. And I know I spoke at length with with David, the attorney, David McCartney, the attorney for the ZBA. We talked about the draft conditions, and it was, how do I say it? It was a little complicated how it all came about, just because of the overall situation. And they wanted to put something in there that at least raised the issue of screening, but wanted to leave it with the planning board's discretion. I don't think it was written as clearly as it could have been. And that's why I had conversations with Mr. McCartney. But that was the intent. The language there, I still think it's up to the planning board to determine if it's necessary. My interpretation is also that the equipment will be fully surrounded by shrubbery because it's around the border of the property. That said, I know that, maybe it could have been written a little more clear, but.
Yeah, I think as follow-up, if there's a question as what the intent was, we can follow up with the ZBA chair, and Ashley can speak to, Mr. McCarthy about what transpired and what was anticipated. But I think the other.
If I could just comment on that too, because
Sure.
I don't agree that it does allow the planning board to determine whether it's necessary or not, because it does say that it shall be screened, but it does allow the planning board the discretion to, what's required in order to screen it in all visible directions. So whether that's covered by what's existing there or whether it requires additional screening, but it does need to be screened in some respect.
And I mean, from my perspective, I'd like to be clear on screen from where, was the intent to protect the views from Bar Lane for the benefit of the residents that may live along there. And then secondly, we don't control the property. It's Village of Harriman, although we can regulate. So I think we do need input from the Village of Harriman from the perspective of they have operations and that's a water tank. I don't know where the lines are. I think we need a little more information and input from them as to what's reasonable and how we can still meet our meet the condition that was imposed by the ZBA. And that was requested of the planning board to consider as part of site plan. So I think that requires a little more communication. And I don't know what the best approach would be, Ashley or Sean. Should we reach out to Harriman, to the mayor, to the DPW director, to talk to them about expectations?
So I mean, ultimately, it's, it's in the planning board's discretion as far as what landscaping, if any, is going to be required when you have an understanding of what this condition means, but I don't know. I mean, I understand that the village might have their concerns, but if anything, I think it's, more on the applicant to talk about what they need for their land use application in order to satisfy the requirements of the town, and then to work that out with the village, or if there's an issue, see what else could be done, whether it's some type of amended approval from the ZBA in order to get rid of any type of condition that might be imposing something that the village is not able to do. But I don't know that it makes sense for the town necessarily, just because the village isn't really the applicant. So it just seems a little odd here.
But we also have to make sure that the site is functional village as the, with the water tank as the primary use on the site.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on the one hand, the village isn't the applicant, but the village was the owner and they had to consent,
Mhm.
to this happening. So they're aware of it.
Oh yeah, of course. Which
So-
I think then they wouldn't, agree to something that they, if they don't want landscaping there.
If they
then
don't want
they're never
landscape,
gonna
right.
agree. So it's not really then they won't, I would think they wouldn't allow it to go forward. I think maybe the first question is what really is being required by the ZBA, if that's the question. And I don't
Yeah.
know whether, it says screen from all visible directions, so if there's a
I
question.
mean,
what-
we can reach out to the chairman to get clarification on that. And again, I think, if necessary, we can call Dave. I can call Dave, or you can call Dave,
Mhm.
whoever wants to do that. And then I will reach out to the Village of Harriman just because I feel like I should. Again, because it's their property and they're our neighbors. And, did they want to see it? Because again, for purposes of screening, from residences on Bar Lane, that are members of the town of Monroe, I think in that location, and obviously, residents, I think, of the Village of Harriman. So I'll follow up with that.
Yeah, I think it depends first, what that means, because then what if that will really dictate whether the planning board even wants to require anything additional versus, I think that's probably the first question, but that makes sense to speak with the village then once we have that answer.
Right.
I can tell you from someone who spent every single minute at one of those meetings, this landscaping, it was never an issue. It really came up at the 11th hour, just as let's put this in there. There was, I don't recall, everybody, they were just concerned about the antennas, the people, and the pole that was originally proposed. That's just the way it was. So, but like I said, I did have pretty detailed conversations with David, the attorney, on this issue. So I'm sure he'll be able to kind of fill you in as to what their intent was.
I forget, is Meadow Glen mostly in the town of Monroe? I don't know if part of it's in Harriman.
I
Believe it
believe
is.
it's all in Monroe, right?
Okay.
I think so.
I know the border, because as you continue, it goes into Harriman, but I forget where the split is. And if Meadow Glen is part Monroe or all Monroe.
I think it's all Monroe.
Okay.
So Scott, is there now their equipment, does it have some enclosure around it? Is that?
No, that was, I spent more time on some of these conditions that they came up out of the blue, and because we never proposed to have an enclosure. Verizon has not been using equipment shelters or enclosures for years now. It's just outdoor equipment, and someone can probably correct me if I'm wrong. It's just like a steel H-frame upon which is a platform, and we just put outdoor equipment on it. There's no roof, there's no siding or anything like that. And if I recall correctly, the conversation with David was, they were thinking if there was going to be such an enclosure, they wanted it to make sure it was more architecturally similar to what the development in Meadow Glen was like. And I kept saying, I understand, but there is no enclosure. And so I think that's why the condition was such that if there is going to be an enclosure, you would have to do this.
So following up, Ashley or Sean, did you have additional comments? And then I'll open it up to the board.
No, I don't.
I think I had shared some comments with Scott before the last meeting. We talked already about the revised EAF that's needed, some correct
Zoning district.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So I don't know whether, I don't think we really, this is really the first time that it's substantively before you, so I don't think we had a chance really to talk about what you're approving. So they do have the use variance. So it's a site plan, and also you have architectural review, but that's really limited to just, the ground, that base equipment area. So it's not really a lot of architectural review, but technically, that is the structure. So any type of coloring, or if there was an enclosure, but it sounds like there's not going to be an enclosure. Talked about landscaping already. At the last
So
meeting.
we have to do our own seeker because it wasn't coordinated.
Yes.
Do we have to do another GML review?
I don't believe it. So I think there was a
we
boundary
within
note on the
500?
plan that was incorrect. So is it not within?
I believe it's not within 500 feet of any, triggering
Yeah,
distance.
I was looking through that for the ZBA this afternoon, and I didn't find any GML references, and we were further enough away that it wasn't required.
Okay.
So the shot clock at the last meeting, there was an agreement to extend the date for the planning board to take action, including completion of SECRA, through April 26, 2021. We had already talked about the easement and maintenance agreement, and basically it's complying, the ZBA imposed a lot of decisions, so those are conditions rather. So some of those might not be applicable if they're things like the enclosure that's not being proposed, but those will all have to be satisfied. So there was, I think, a plan for the removal of the antenna and things like that will have to be all submitted by the applicant and done as part of the ZBA's approval. But other than that, I think that is everything.
Is there, for the GML review, is there a requirement? It says, I think there's something about parkland. Is that state parkland or parkland in general?
I don't think it's limited to state, but it might be state, county. I could pull it up in just a second.
And the reason I'm mentioning it is that the only other, trying to think of what, if anything, would trigger a GML is the fact that KJ has their parkland along Larkin Drive. Trying to figure out which parcel it is.
So it's the boundary of any existing or proposed county or state park or any other recreation area.
Or any other recreation area.
So
Yeah, they may not be that close because their recreation facility goes onto a property. I'm just trying to measure here.
Oh, that's up to the north, correct?
It's actually to the northwest.
Okay. Yeah, we
Well-
looked at that at the ZBA level.
Yeah, it
No,
looks
and-
like it's the park itself where they're showing the park. It looks like it's 1,500 feet away.
Yeah.
If you measure to the where the park is, it's 1,500 feet. Even to the parcel, it's like around 700 feet. So I think you're good.
Yep.
Okay. I just wasn't sure. Board members, do you have any comments?
I have a few questions. This is Anthony Vaccaro.
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's any planned lighting for the site or use of a generator, and possibly, you know, if there's provisions for, you know, adding equipment to the site, you know, what part of the process would we get back involved with? And then the other thing, and this might be more of an issue for Harriman DPW, but for maintenance on the tank, is there, you know, for peace of mind, what if Harriman needs to do maintenance on their tank? Are there provisions or agreements to allow them to, you know, get around their equipment that's going to be attached to the tank?
Good questions. I think I can answer all of them. Lighting, there are lights on the H-frame that will go on. Well, they're turned on and they're on timers for when maintenance folks come if they need to have light. I think they're set to go off automatically within an hour, and they're on timers because they don't, to make sure that the maintenance folks don't forget to turn them off so that the light's not on constantly. But you have those just in case they need to do emergency work during night hours. Generator. Now, I don't have the plans in front of me. I don't think there's a generator there. Does anyone recall? Kathy, Sarah? I don't
remember there being a.
Yeah, but I can look at the plans when I have 2 minutes of not talking to let you know. In terms of maintenance, yes, we have an arrangement with the village and with every other water department where we're on a tank. If there's planned maintenance, we have provisions where they will notify us. And if we have to remove our equipment for that painting and maintenance, that's what happens. Absolutely. Because it is first and foremost a water storage facility.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
To answer the question about the generator, it doesn't appear to be proposed on the site plan.
Yeah, no, I was just looking now at the plans, no generator.
Are the lights shown on the plan?
I am looking.
And one more question after that.
I don't see the lights right now. I can ask Steve to put them on there unless I'm missing it.
Yeah, if they're not, if you could add those and even a note explaining the timer
Yep.
scenario and their purpose would be helpful.
Unless for some reason they're not going to be on, but they're typically on these, but I'll just confirm with Steve. He would know.
And the last question just thought of when you mentioned is security. How do you manage security so you have access within the fence line?
We will be, I believe we'll be given the code to unlock right now the water tank facility is a secure facility. It's locked. It's locked with a fence. We will be given the code. I believe it's a code or a key. I'm not sure which one it is. But we will work directly with the water department.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anybody else have comments or questions? No? So I think at this time, we're going to get additional responses, updated plans. And again, Noreen, in by date, did you say the 25th?
Yes.
So once we have that, obviously, if there's anything that changes the SEAF because of the responses, let us know.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, I think we can have conversations with the ZBA chair in terms of that landscaping intent. And I can reach out to Harriman to find out, you know, their thoughts as far as the enclosure. And we'll, you know, take it up again at our next meeting. I don't think site plan requires a public hearing, Ashley. No.
No, it's not.
So I mean, we haven't really polled the board, but given the extensive hearings that were held, you know, in association with the variance, I don't envision having any hearings. But
Yeah.
that's up to the board.
I was gonna bring that up. Is it possible to poll the board now then? Just so
Would that be okay, Ashley?
I mean, I
You want
don't
us to
like,
hold
you know,
off?
any type of informal poll of the board. If someone wanted to make a motion to waive the public hearing, you could certainly do that, but I just, yeah, if you want to take an actual vote, something like that, you could
Well,
do so, but if you want to wait,
Let me get a sense of if the board feels like they have sufficient information to waive a public hearing first. So if you all would just weigh in, if you feel like you know enough about this project that you could make a determination whether to waive the public hearing.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
Now, this involves Harriman's water tank, and even though we had public hearings, they were our zoning board. I mean, do we give Harriman an opportunity to discuss in terms of their residents in that area and what they would need, especially since this screening is our topic of tonight? Maybe they want, you know, better visual barrier fencing or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to reach out to both the ZBA and Harriman about that. And the residents are Monroe residents. So from your perspective, Anthony, it's a question of whether those residents should be able to comment on the adequacy of screening.
I guess I wasn't clear. I thought there were Harriman residents also neighboring, but if it was village residents, then I understand what you said about numerous public hearings at the ZBA. So,
Okay. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Do you feel like you have enough information? Yes.
I have to say, based on the extensive public hearing before the ZBA and the extensive submission by the public and their representative during the ZBA process, I really feel like a lot of the input from the public has already been submitted, gotten out there, vetted extensively by the ZBA, and frankly, taken into consideration in the ZBA's ultimate decision, which led to this site plan that's being submitted to us. Personally, I don't feel that there's need for additional public hearing.
Okay. I saw John shaking his head. Yes.
I agree with Jeff.
I agree with Jeff. So why don't I then make a motion that the planning board waive the site plan public hearing for the reason that the zoning board of appeals had significant public input as part of its public hearings in front of the ZBA, and that those concerns and comments were subsequently considered as part of the determination for the variance. May I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Noreen, could you poll the board?
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
John Allegra,
Aye.
Jason Sarinsky,
Aye.
Anthony Vaccaro,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
Pat Shea.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. And we'll get that information in before the 25th.
And Ashley, do we have to do anything with regard to the shot clock? In terms of making a request of the applicant?
so the shot clock is extended now through April 26th.
Okay.
So, you know, if they're timely with their submissions and everything, you know, the planning board has all the information it needs from the ZBA and or village before, you know, the April meetings, you would be in good shape. But, you know, things come up, we'll take it, you know, take it up at the next meeting if need be.
Okay. Very good. So we will see you at the next meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. All right, where'd my agenda go? So we're gonna have minutes. Does this reflect the minutes that are still outstanding? Was this updated, Noreen, the agenda?
It's the one that we pushed over from last week to this week. And unfortunately, I did not get a chance to finish the other one I was working on this morning. I was doing a lot of ZBA stuff today. So I didn't get the other one I was working on for last week's meeting done. I had forgotten about it. But you will have a whole bunch at your March meetings.
So with
We just
that,
have December 10th.
so Ashley, you don't have to stick around if you don't want to. Sean, unfortunately for you, you do. So thank you, Ashley.
Have a good night, all. Thank you.
Good
Have a
night.
good one.
Good night.
I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
All right, so present, it looks like, I think all of us were present. So I'm just gonna scroll through this. But if anyone had comments that they wanna raise now or any corrections, let us know. And I think going forward, Noreen, again, we're not gonna do this verbatim.
Yeah. No, we're not.
And it really, the minutes should reflect, I think, points of agreement. If we've asked for specific information to be submitted, that should be reflected. Obviously, if there's a resolution vote.
Right.
Consensus main points, that's what really should be included. So it was DG. Verizon didn't appear. And then we had HBP end space. And then obviously we must have approved some other minutes. So not hearing any comments on this, would someone please make a motion that the board accept the December 10th, 2020 workshop minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Lisa. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jason. Noreen?
Bonnie Franson,
Aye.
Jason Storinsky, Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid,
Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Anthony Vaccaro,
Aye.
Pat Shea. Did we lose Pat?
No, hi, did you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
With that, the motion passes. So we've approved the December minutes. You'll get us the remaining minutes, Noreen, for our next meeting.
Yep.
Is there anything the board wants to discuss before we get off the call? No?
How about all that snow?
How about all that rain that's thankfully melting this snow?
Yes.
Yeah, we
And
got
a nice
another
warm
4 to 8.
day.
We have another 4 to 8 coming Thursday.
Oh my God.
I received a letter today from an attorney, Joe Shergren.
Okay.
He represents Kingsville Synagogue.
Okay.
They're in the middle of a court problem with the building inspector because they now have proceeded to make additional living quarters in this house on the 3rd floor without getting approval. So they've yet to finish the approval with us for the parking yet. So the letter basically came and was requesting that they get put back on the agendas immediately to go for 3rd floor. And I was concerned and spoke with Ashley, and I was waiting to hear from Dave McCartney. He's a big problem with getting funds for his escrow, hence why he's been gone for so long.
Right.
Am I allowed to say your escrow is going to be higher than what is required, so that I always have a higher balance and not have to chase him down every 2 weeks. He's a
I
very
think-
hard man.
I think we have to go by what the escrow law says, if it
Right, so that's
requires
what I
that.
was talking with Ashley. We have to wait and see what the application comes from. Now, David Mako reached out to me. He's gonna be submitting for next month to try to finish the parking in front of us.
Okay,
And
Well-
then he has to go to the ZBA first for the third floor, and Ashley's not 100% sure he has to come to us for the third floor. I don't know.
yeah. I think let's find out from Ben and from Ashley.
Yeah,
They
Ben
would
wasn't
make that
available.
determination.
Talk to Ashley tonight, so I'll talk to him more because I have to reply to this attorney tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think it's again a determination of Ben and Ashley can confer with each other.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted
And
to let you
then-
know that this came in today. And,
Yeah, and I think
get it
issues
resolved.
with escrow and if we can require more, et cetera, that's really a town board matter. So
Okay.
you might want to speak to Tony or to Brian Nugent.
Okay,
All right,
all right, thank
anything
you.
else?
I have nothing.
Okay, would one of the board members, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
No.
Okay, can we leave John here and somebody else make it then?
We're gonna mute him in the future.
Jason? you're
Jason, you
making
made a motion?
To adjourn tonight's meeting, yes.
Okay, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Anthony. All in favor, raise your hands or say aye.
Aye.
All righty. Thank you all. I
Have
saw
a
you,
good
Jeff.
night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Right.
Bye. Good night. Thank you. Thanks, Sean.
Yep.